Hi everyone, I made this game in 2 hours and I'm gonna show you today exactly how I did it. I didn't do any traditional coding or traditional modeling, and I made a 3D first-person game using just MCPs and vibe coding. A little bit about me: I've been working with virtual reality video games, and as a creative director for the last 10 years, I've been working with big clients like Microsoft, Netflix, Valve, etc. And I'm really excited to see what kind of new AI tools coming out there, and they're also going to show you how you can use these AI tools to make games faster. These are the AI tools we're going to use in this tutorial. There are many of them out there and they're changing all the time, but this is a tool set I'm going to use in this tutorial. These are specifically chosen for game development. I'm going to use Blender MCP and Unity MCP. These are tools to connect to Blender and to Unity to create 3D assets and game development. I'm going to use Meshy AI and CSM AI to create 3D assets. I'm going to use Cursor for vibe coding and creating extra logic. And meanwhile, also I'm going to use ChatGPT and Claude for when I have to solve something, when I have to brainstorm, when I have to find some pieces of code. So this my main tool set for this tutorial. A little bit of vibe coding. What is vibe coding? Basically, it's a way of programming using human language. And something I wanted to mention, like really briefly, is that traditionally many people don't like to get into coding because they're getting really frustrated. But when you're using vibe coding tools, it allow you to build frustration tolerance. I think the main skill you actually need for programming, that every time you're getting stuck somewhere on the way when you're creating some logic or debugging or resolving issues or trying to create something new, having an AI assistant helps you a lot by asking questions, asking for help for resolving some bugs, and most of all, of course, using AI assistant to create logic. And through this process of using AI assistant like Cursor, Windsurf, you learn how to code. And having this assistant helping you to overcome frustration, like, I think it's a really cool thing. It's kind of that, like having a teacher by your side who can always answer your questions and help you a lot. So I think for people who don't know how to code, it's a really cool tool to get into coding. And for people who know how to code, it's a really cool tool to speed up the process and write some parts of the code which traditionally was very boring. So you can cut corners where you know you can do it. So I use it a lot. And about MCP is a model context protocol, and this diagram explains it. Basically, MCP is a unified protocol between LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., and different software. It's still fairly new tool, but it has a great potential. And I think once it's mature, you can save up time on very boring things. If you need to arrange something in a scene, if you want to create something standardized, instead of like manually operating with the software, it can do it for you basically. But let's keep in mind that MCPs right now, which is like June 2025, are still quite new and they are a bit stupid. Give it some time, give it some months or a couple years, and it's gonna be like a really great tool. What's on the menu today? So basically, these are the steps how I created that little game. Let's go through them. First is conceptualizing. Let's create an idea for the game and a rough concept for the game and what exactly we need to make this game. Next one is an art direction, how our game looks and feels, what kind of references we use. And for these first two steps, we use ChatGPT and image machine learning tools. And then the third step is creating 3D assets. We're going to use Blender MCP and some 3D generative tools. Then we create a Unity project with Unity MCP, and we add extra logic with Cursor AI. And then we finish up with adding music to it. We're going to add some generative music and wrap up the project. That's basically the rough concept of how to create a game like this. Something before starting, I want to mention all the tools we're going to use, they use prompting. So basically, you communicate with different software and different algorithms and tools using human language. And something to keep in mind, I think most of you already use prompting a lot, but these are 4 things I want to mention how to write better prompts. You always have to mention context in which you need this prompt. You have to specify the details. You have to add negative prompts to reduce unwanted results. And also, if your AI is start to trip, you have to also add some negative prompts to reduce tripping, or how they call it, hallucinating. And then you can use actually LLMs to write better prompts. If you already have a sketch of your prompt, you can drop it in Claude or ChatGPT or another LLM, and it will refine it for you. Okay, let's get started. So the first step is conceptualizing. When I was thinking what type of game to create, originally I made this game for the workshop at this cool festival called Amaze. And this festival was happening at the location called Silent Green in Berlin. It's a former crematorium. And I decided to make the game about a player running in that space, because it would be cool for participants to see the familiar location where the workshop actually was taking place. I just decided to make a very simple game where it's a first person game where you're running in this space around, and like you don't really have to do much, just to showcase how you can create something simple with the AI tools. So let's start with creating a level design. So I was thinking, how can I model this particular location? And I decided to use 3D AI tools. And for that, I would need to first find reference images. And I was looking for different photographs of this location. And I wanted to decide which photo would fit for my needs, basically. This photo, for example, is not really good photo for reference because there are a lot of people here, and it would, if you would drop it into AI generative tool, it's going to be problematic because it will generate all these people, and or like probably it's going to be a mess, to be honest. This one is pretty good reference because it's empty. You have the location is recognizable. This one is also, again, not the best reference because there are people here. Then I also took a few photos from Google Earth, which would be another reference image, but it's a bit muddy. And I decided to go with this one, which is like, I think, the best reference image of the location. You can see everything here, the crematorium. This is some kind of glass house, the lamppost, the trees, and the forest and the lawn. Let's model this location. And before jumping to Blender and start to model the whole thing, one step I want to do is a simplification of this reference image. I found generally that it works better because this image has a lot of details. And also in video games, very often we don't need so many details. We can go for more simplified look. So what I decided to do with this image is make it more simplified and make it look more like a video game asset. For that, I decided to stylize it with a generative AI tool. And I'm gonna use basically ChatGPT, which is the easiest tool. But obviously, you can use other tools like Midjourney or your tool of choice. So, how we stylize this image into more game look? First, we need to find references of different video games. If let's say I wanted to make it look more like Y2K games, like early 2000 games. So I started to look at different old games from early 2000 just to see different color combinations and aesthetics. And I picked a few images like these, which kind of represent the graphics from that era. And I wanted to have the location look like one of those old games. This in particular, I really like the colors. It has a green lawn. It has some kind of purple video game look like tree, etc. So I decided to use basically this image for stylizing. So let's open ChatGPT and drag and drop our image here, our reference image of the location, which is this one. And then let's drag and drop the second image, which is a styling image, the one I already prepared. And this is this image. And then we can write basically this prompt. Can you stylize our reference image of the location with the style on the second image? And we run it, and we can have a stylized image of our location. And what we got in the end is this beautiful image. It's the same location, but it's very simplified. So we have basically a glass house here, the crematorium is here, the lawn, the lamppost, the forest, the sky. It also added some nice clouds. But it's the same location, it's recognizable, but it's already kind of stylized for the video game. And this image is better suited as the reference image for different AIs because it doesn't have that many details. I'm gonna use this image for Blender MCP to create a level which we need for our game. I'm gonna run Claude and I'm gonna run Blender. Let's delete all this. Let's go here and start MCP server here. So we have now side by side Blender and Claude. And basically, we're going to use Claude to control Blender. And if you can see here, my Claude already set up for using Blender MCP server. Here we're running MCP server, and then Claude connects to this MCP server. So it allows Claude to talk to Blender and do things. Let's drag and drop our reference image into Claude, this one. And let's just describe basically what we want Claude to do in Blender. And what we need to do is obviously to create a location, create a 3D model of this level based on a reference image. For that, I could just put this prompt, and this prompt basically says, you're an expert in 3D modeling and Blender software. Please recreate the scene from the uploaded image. Keep all the sizes, distances, and proportions on reference image, so on, so on. So let's start. Let's see what Claude can generate from just one image. It's gonna ask a few times to allow it access Blender. And what it does, it basically creates different subtasks for Blender and using MCP protocol to talk to the Blender and create different different models inside Blender. And you can read it. It's like a human language, so basically you can read exactly what it does. And as you can see, it creates the buildings, it creates the path, etc. And what is really important that it actually names things properly here in the hierarchy. So once we're gonna export that into Unity, it's gonna be named properly. This process takes a while, so I'm not gonna go through whole process, and I will just gonna show you the end result. So this is what we got in the end when Claude ran all the tasks. Basically, from one reference image like this, we got a whole 3D scene with the trees, with the crematorium, with the glass house, with the pathway and lampposts, which is pretty impressive, considering that the technology is like 1 month old. What did you decided to do is like, I'm not gonna use this model as a final model in the game, but I'm gonna use this model as a position references for my game. So basically, I will drop this into Unity and I will replace each of the objects here with a properly generated, more detailed versions of each part of this scene. So let's grab this model of the location and drop it into Unity. This is Unity, this is the latest Unity, and once I dropped the scene generated from Blender MCP into Unity, that's how it looks like in Unity. This is exactly the same scene we've seen before, but now it's in Unity game engine. And as you can see, like all the objects, they're separate, they're like named properly, which is pretty cool. But this is just the beginning. This is basically a placement reference for our game. What we're gonna do now is like we go through all these different objects, trees and the lawn and the path and the glass house, and we're gonna replace them with the more detailed versions. How we do that? Let's go back to our reference image. So what we're going to do with this reference image to create more detailed models of the crematorium, of the glass house, lamppost, etc. First thing we do is we do segmentation. So we basically split this image into multiple different images and create different models one by one. And by segmentation, I mean, so I split this big image into separate images. And you can see there are like some artifacts I left. Basically, when I cut the main image, it into smaller images, I had to like basically close some holes here. There was a tree, but now I just used Photoshop content aware fill to close this hole. So it sort of roughly looks like a whole building, but you can see there are some artifacts. Here is the same. This is a lawn, but I wanted to have a clean lawn, but there was a tree here which I still closed with a Photoshop content aware fill, lamppost, tree, side forest. So basically now we have all these different segmented images from the main one, and we want to create different 3D models from these segmented images. And for that, I'm gonna use different 3D AI tools. I think my favorite tool is Meshy AI. Meshy AI has this option image to 3D, so you can use only one image to create a 3D model. For example, tree. We can just drop this one here, the tree. It already creates a description based on image. It already has an AI which recognizes what exactly is on the image, and you can just press generate and it will generate the 3D model. As you can see, it created 4 different variations, and you can pick one. I think maybe this one is funny, kind of bubbly. So then you can just say create me a texture. So as you can see, now it's generated, and we can go to the model. It kind of looks like our model. Maybe if I would change the description here or try different references, it would be more three-dimensional because it looks like a bit flat. But this is something to play around with. You can try different options and see what works and what doesn't work. But it's pretty impressive that you can use just one image and you can have a whole 3D model, which is also, it's not like that simple model. It's actually a pretty decent model. So what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna go and create 3D models through all these different images. I also tried to use other tools like CSM, which is another tool. They also have this option image to 3D. There are other tools like I think Tripo, which is also another AI generative tool, which has also an option to generate something from one single image. And I think you should try different tools and see which one works for you. I think these are three of my favorite ones. But since in this space everything changes so fast, by the time you watch this tutorial, you should research and decide by yourself. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna create 3D models from all these reference images. And I did that. Let's use this glb.e online model viewer. So let's say if we go and we can see a model of a lamppost, it's going to be our lamppost model, which is pretty decent lamppost model. If we go to see another generation of tree, this is going to be another variation of the tree, and so on, so on. We have model of the clouds. We have um, the ground. We have the glass house. This is the glass house. So now we generated different parts of the level. And if we go now to our Unity, we can see now we have this scene which generated by Blender MCP. And now we're going to go and basically replace every object here with a corresponding model. So I'm placing one by one different models which were in the Blender MCP scene with the more detailed versions. As you can see, that the final scene we're going to use in the game will look more detailed and more precise. So once everything was ready, this is how the scene looks like. We have everything here. We have the crematorium, we have the glass house, we have the trees, the lamppost, the clouds, the sky, and this is our reference for the player. Uh, and this is pretty impressive because it didn't take that long time to create this scene, and it was all generated with originally just one image like this. And we have the 3D version of the reference image, but inside game engine. So the next thing we would need to do is to create mechanics. Traditionally, when you want to make a first-person game in a scene like this, you use a game object, let's say player, and then you add a component called first-person controller. What it does, it would control our player that we're pressing keys on a keyboard or a gamepad, and it would control our player so the player can run through the landscape. But now we don't have to write any code. We can use Unity MCP to write this code for us. And to use Unity MCP, we can run Claude, and we can create a new chat. And as you can see, I already have Unity MCP set up here, and we can run MCP server inside Unity that again, Claude can talk to Unity to manipulate Unity. What we have now is we have our Claude here on the left, and we have our Unity on the right, and the Claude can talk to Unity and tell things what to do to Unity. Claude basically should tell to Unity, can you create a first-person controller on this object and set everything up? Let's try to do that. And the prompt for that would be this. I write you're experienced Unity developer and C# coder. Can you create first-person controller on player ref? This is our player reference object to control the player with keyboard, BSAD buttons, and mouse. It should basically do the job for you. And as you can see, now Claude starts to go and create subtasks for Unity through Unity MCP server. And it already has a knowledge base how to create a good first-person controller. So it would follow best practices from its knowledge base and create subtasks. It would set up the scene, it would set up all the components in the object, and also it will create the scripts. So it does all the job for you. It's also gonna ask these questions from time to time because it would require different access to different code parts or file system. As you can see, it already created a script for first-person controller. Now it's also setting up the scene, etc., etc. So it takes time to go through this process, but eventually it will set everything up for you. So let's skip this process a little bit, and I will show you the final result. So as you can see, once Claude stopped working, what it created is this component called first-person controller, which is set up on our player. And if we double click here, we can see the code. It's all generated by Claude. It created a piece of code to control the player, and it added it in a hierarchy in a correct place, which is player. So if you read through the code, it can say that, yeah, if you press certain key, it would move a player certain way, etc., etc. There is best practice basically to create a script like this. And it's pretty fascinating because traditionally you would go through different GitHub repositories and Stack Overflow to search for simple code like this, and you would use it and rewrite it, but now you don't have to do it. It all done for you. It's basically you can have this code right here already. Let's run this level. Let's switch to game view and see what it does. So our mouse works. So if you use a mouse, it goes up and down, and we can use WSAD keys to walk around to location, which is pretty impressive. Like, so I spent only a few minutes, and we have a playable game with all the assets in and mechanics of walking around in. And then I decided to do a little bit more interactions in the game. So I decided to drop something special in the game that you can see or interact with. So I had this image, and I decided to do a 3D model of this and put it in the game. I did the same process like I explained before. So I took this image and did the segmentation and drop it to Meshy. And I got this file, which is a decent moose or whatever it is. Is also, it's interesting how AI actually creating all these details, because in the original image we didn't have anything like this, but AI thought that's going to be the way this object looks from behind. So let's add this object in our game. And basically I added it a few times in a scene. If you can see, here is our special object in the game. What I wanted to do with this object is I wanted to make it rotate around vertical axis. But let's assume I don't know anything about programming. How would I do that? And in this case, what can help me is vibe coding tools like Cursor and Windsurf. So let's open Cursor and let's drop our project there to the Cursor. So what is really cool about Cursor? You can set it up the way you want. It's kind of like, and instead of traditional settings, the way you're setting it up is a human language. So basically, I'm just setting up Cursor for game development. And there is this file called Cursor Rules, and I'm just writing, you are an expert Unity C# developer with deep knowledge in game development, etc., etc. And I'm describing to the Cursor like the way it should write code and like my preference, the way I like to write code. You don't have to do it if you don't know much about it. But these are the best practices of writing code and code architecture. This is a super important step to create a meaningful cursor that it has a personality and meaning in life. Anyway, long story short, if we want our friends to rotate, we can create a script for that. You drop here cursor rules and you write stuff like create me a script for an object to rotate around y axis, let's say. And if I even don't know what y axis is, I can say vertical axis because let's see. And what Cursor does, he basically creates a script for you. This is amazing, right? Like you don't have to do anything anymore. You don't have to create 3D assets. You don't have to write code. You don't have to set up anything in the scene. It's like having multiple assistants helping you. And that's what it did. It created a vertical rotator script. You can say accept script, and you can drag and drop it here on the object. Let's say we have this object and it created a script. We drag and drop it here, rotation speed, direction, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if it works. So as you can see, it rotates. That's amazing. Let's try to go it even more faster. Let's say go like 1000. So you see it rotates now. So we have everything what a game needs. We have a level with the 3D assets. We have a cool friend rotating here. And what else we can dream of? I thought it would be cool to add hands because in all first person games, you have hands. So that's the next thing I decided to do. And I added hands here. As you can see, I created them basically the same way. So I just sketched out hands like this in Painter or some on Photoshop or something like this. As you can see, it's a doodle basically, super simple. Then I dropped it into ChatGPT and said, "Can you make them more like 3D and stylize them?" That's how they started to look. And then I dropped them to Meshy, and I would have a 3D model of them. And then I asked Cursor to do a script for hand animation because I like when you walk that the hands go up and down. And Cursor did this script called weapon bob. A bob is like a type of animation which goes up and down. So if we run a game now, amazing, beautiful game. So we have everything, hands and friends and a beautiful location. What is missing? Music is missing. So the last cherry on top of this game, we're gonna add music to it to make it a real game. And to make music in the game, we're gonna use something called stable audio. Stable audio is a really cool tool to generate music with prompts. Since this tutorial, all about prompting and creating assets with prompts. We also gonna use generative audio tool to create music for our game. Here you write prompt and here it generates the sound. So what I decided to do for the game is music like this: a hypnotic upbeat track fast featuring game vampires theme 909 808 8-bit. Kind of like a generic description, but it sets the vibe for the game. I kind of want to have something fast and funny and have like scary touch to it because the location is actually a crematorium. So I want added like vampire theme. And you add generate and you can have the track. So what we got in the end is this track. So now we can drag and drop this music in our project. And drag and drop it to our scene. Make it loop. And that's it. We have music in our game also. Amazing. This is a proper game. This is a proper game with sound and with friends. As you can see, the iterations take so short. So it's really cool for prototyping. It's really cool for game jams and kind of checking your ideas out. So, and in the end, what I wanted to mention, so it took me not that long time to create this game, including logic, including mechanics, including 3D assets and music and level design, which is pretty impressive. I think these tools gonna change game development in the future big times. So we actually don't need to do some boring routines anymore, and that would just cut corners, but in a good way. So it would save us time to do non-creative tasks that would let us focus on more creative tasks and direction. And something I wanted to mention about this graph. Right now, MCP is very new and it's tripping and it's looping into itself and it's stupid. But give it some time and it's going to be a real good assistant and helper for you. And it would help you to do things way faster and with small teams. But something I want to mention about this graph from the side of LLMs right now, we only can use, I think, Claude and Cursor, which is subscription-based model software. And implementation on Blender, Unity, and other software sites right now is written by some enthusiasts. But what I think will happen in the future is the MCP servers will be written by the actual software. So the integration will be way more smoothless and LLMs will adapt to MCP in a better way. So the interactions between LLMs and software will be way better than now because now it's like very DIY. And once everything is more mature, more LLMs will be capable of working with MCP, including free local LLMs. Let's say you can use DeepSeek or some other free LLMs to connect to MCP. So on every step of these, things will get better and things will go faster and cheaper, and also they will be more stable. I think at this point, it's really important to understand how this works. So for the future, it would be easier to use this stuff. We'll see. I'm really curious where this model will develop in the future, but it's definitely going to be way better than right now. You can download the code and the build of this project on my itch.io. If you go to bloodstorm.itch.io MCP game, you can find a build of the game to download and play it, and you can download the full source code and Unity project in the file here as well. So thank you so much for watching the tutorial. You can use this QR code to find my links on social media and my website. Hit me up if you have any questions or suggestions. I also open for commissions. Thank you for watching and have a great day.